Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Maybe I should start with mentioning again, I'm leading the WWF Germany Agriculture and Land Use Change team. But actually, I was just thinking about it. We could also rename that department and call it Sustainable Consumption Production. And I've mentioned that already on Monday to the team. It's maybe you could say it's almost like these Russian dolls, right? You have the big, and you open it up, and there's a smaller doll inside, and that's also the truth with this project, this Sustainable Consumption Production, because it actually cuts across everything that we in the agricultural department are concerned with, from farm to fork, the whole value chain. And that makes it so valuable. And I said that's also makes it's a big challenge because it's so broad, but it has also the opportunities of creating impact are of course much bigger. So with great power with great power comes great responsibility. So that's probably what it is. Yeah, I was asked to give little bit of a background. Why are we here? Why are we dealing with it? What's the framework and what's driving us? And I try to be brief. There are two things probably that really matter the most for us in terms of putting ourselves into that area. On the one hand, it's these planetary boundaries, and I will come back to them in a minute. And on the other hand, and we have heard about this before, is the Sustainable Development Goals. We also sometimes it gets a bit confusing. Where are we, and how do we come from all the way from the UN down to, over the Sustainable Development Goals with 17 goals, 116 on targets. Then there's the goal number 12 on sustainable consumption production, and then all the way down there we have these future food together and the climate impact of food. Themes or programs that we are trying to address. So that's pretty much, I mean, it's very much simplified, but that's how we come down from the big UN targets down to what we do. This is a slide that I think, Tanya, you developed it. Actually, it's quite nice because it shows us that the SDG 12, which is probably, if we are honest, one of the SDGs that it's not that well known in comparison to 1 and 2 and so on. But it's nevertheless, it's a very responsible one because we will not be able to balance these different goals unless we also address responsible consumption and production. That's what we try to express here. There's now the planetary boundaries, the 9 planetary boundaries, which I guess you probably are familiar with. Probably the interesting thing is that there's a progression when they first were published, and now this year they just updated the figure, and we see that from 3 boundaries crossed in 2009, we have 6 boundaries that we have crossed. And I have a little, I have magnified this bit here. This is the 2023 image. And unfortunately, first of all, the bad news is our food systems or agricultural production, consumption habits, and so on, are the main driver of that we are transgressing these boundaries. There's, for example, the biogeochemical flows. This is phosphate and nitrogen they picked because it's the most important nutrients that are overused, as you can see in agriculture, which leads to eutrophication and pollution of groundwater. We have the climate change, of course, CO2 concentration, which then triggers radiative forcing. We have, by the way, these are now the freshwater and the biosphere integrity have been updated now. It's the first time that they display that way in 2023, where you see that also freshwater use is we are transgressing boundaries. Agriculture is the main user of freshwater. We've heard this. And also the biodiversity, the biosphere integrity. they are distinguishing genetic and functional, which are also like. So it's not just about to say, hey, we are losing rhinos, or there are some species that will go extinct. It's much more than that. It's this functional integrity that is at risk. And that's going all the way from tipping points, the Amazon rainforest deforestation, and a massive impact on the entire South American climate system, all the way down to loss of soil biodiversity and loss of functional properties of soils to produce crops, to purify water, to store carbon, and so on. All these functional properties are related to the biodiversity, biosphere integrity. So I said it, or the global food system is a leading contributor to our rapidly deteriorating environment and unraveling of nature. And we've heard it before. We have 27 here. That's already outdated. I think the latest figures is at least 30, if not 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions have to be attributed directly or indirectly to the food systems. Freshwater, I already mentioned it. This is a massive problem if you link it to climate change and lack of availability of freshwater in all these irrigated regions of the world. Deforestation, that's probably the most well-known direct and indirect land use changes and effects on intact tropical rainforests, for example. And then already gotten a bit forgotten in these days as COVID seems to be over, but pandemics, One Health issues is a massive problem with our consumption habits. At EU level, we did a study, I think it was 2 years ago, I was wondering this morning, it was 2 years ago we did this study Stepping Up, where we tried to look into what is the responsibility of the EU consumption in terms of deforestation. And you can see it clearly here that after China, EU is the second biggest contributor to deforestation. This is a very sad picture because you may argue, well, EU is actually not that big, but this footprint is massive. We see that above all, it's soy, palm oil, beef, wood products, but also cocoa and coffee. These are the 6 most important commodities. And as you know, WWF, we've been working on sustainable soy, on deforestation-free supply chains for decades, I assume. But nevertheless, it's still very, very important. And soy production and what we also see in Latin American countries is a massive issue, not only to land use change, but also, again, loss of biodiversity, pollution of the environment, and so on. In Germany, so you could say, well, I'm talking about tropical countries or countries of the global south, but unfortunately, Germany is no better. This is on the top the trend of farmland birds in the EU, but down here also some figures for some iconic species, some birds here, lapwing and windchat, and we have lost 93% of this species and 63% of windchat. I was just, when I was sitting here listening to the speakers, I thought the biggest threat here is actually even ignorance in a way. The young people would not even know these species anymore. It's completely lost. They would not even know what's gone. So then, the appreciation also comes with the knowledge of what we are actually losing. On the right hand, nitrogen pollution is a big thing in Germany, still is, since probably almost 10 or 15 years, ever since we were facing the risk of being punished by the EU for not fulfilling the EU goals on reducing nitrate load in our water bodies. I also added, and I mentioned it already, loss of soil fertility and soil organic matter also in Germany is an issue. We can see that clearly. Animal welfare is something that is big on the agenda in Germany, and it's a bit sad also. We made some interesting progress, or at least some attempts to address this with the so-called Borchert Commission some years back, but it has, as it appears now, completely failed. It's gone. And then I don't want to mention, we at WWF, we always we always try to also address the farmers' livelihood issues. The thing is, we are not actually, we are on the side of the farmers, because what we see with all these environmental threats and issues, you could argue, well, but farmers are doing great, so what can we do? The thing is, farmers are not doing great in Germany. They are economically stressed, and they're also, in terms of their reputation, a lot of discussions I have with farmers, the worst thing is our reputation, loss of reputation. We are blamed for everything bad that is happening. And we are very much concerned about this, and we always try to work on the positive end of working with farmers, changing something, showing examples. So altogether, what we eat matters, and I mean, I'm probably preaching the choir. We know all this. Our consumption patterns drive this, and I mentioned it. So we also had some thoughts about what are the solutions and the way forwards. And this is now, apologies, it's a bit German-centered. So we need these diets within planetary boundaries, and all the Eat Lancet Commission recommendations. This is something very important we follow. The sad truth for Germany is we need to reduce our meat consumption. And Ulf Jekyll, you already said it. It's something super unpopular these days to tell people, you know what, meat has a massive footprint, and unfortunately we need to reduce the. So we, again, at WWF, we try to phrase it in a positive way and say we need to make the plant-based diets more attractive, and that's also our input into the debate to say, hey, there's no loss of quality of life if you try out some other forms of diets and look into what the vegetarian, the vegan cuisine has to offer. There's a whole debate about the true cost of food. Tanya is an expert on this. But my opinion, and I'm happy to debate this, eventually there's no way around the prices for food will need to increase. I'm happy to be convinced otherwise, but I don't see any way out of this if we want to address and provide decent livelihoods for farmers, not only in Germany, but all over the globe. Their income has to increase from what they produce. There's the third point on pathways to intensify, diversify agricultural products. It must be laid out, financially supported, and follows. There are a lot of good ideas, and actually the German government these days are putting heavy emphasis, for example, on an agroecological transformation, which I really appreciate, and that's something that we at WWF also are very much convinced about, that this is the way forward. So this is all, I'm just, you've seen it, greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture must reduce. It's the footprint of, at least in Germany, footprint of our production is way too high. We need to produce while conserving the biodiversity. It's not sequential, it's in parallel. We cannot afford, and that's also a debate we had in Germany last year as the aggression war, Russian war on Ukraine started, where some conservative parties said, now let's leave biodiversity aside for a moment. We need to increase food production, whatever the cost. And that's a very dangerous trend, because I don't think we are doing ourselves a favor, because these crises, what Katjuscha, what you said, need to be addressed in parallel, not in sequence. And then there's all the diversification of agricultural products, strengthening local regional, and that's again, I mean, this is what the SCP also addressed very much, and we have these beautiful examples all around here. So, and with that, I think I'm through with my slides and hand over. Thank you.